Simplifying rational expressions, part 1 of 2. Here we are at section 8.4. In this first example, in simplifying this expression, we can see, first of all, it's a rational expression because we have one polynomial divided by another. Probably the easiest way to simplify an expression like this is to rewrite the expression factoring completely each of the factors in the expression. So factor of 4 factors 2 times 2, so that's the prime factorization. 4 can be written as 2 times 2. X cubed can be written as x times x times x. So we're not going to do this each time, but in order to more easily see what you're supposed to be doing here in terms of canceling like factors, it is pretty easy once you write every factor out completely. So anyway, 4x squared can be written as 2 times 2, that's 4. X squared is x times x. So anytime you have one factor in the numerator that's the same as the one in the denominator, when we think about it, we could think about this as 2 divided by 2. Well, 2 divided by 2 is just 1. Another 2 divided by 2, that's also 1. X divided by x, that's 1. X divided by x, that's also 1. So what we're doing here is we're changing the look of this expression. We're not changing its value, because anytime you cancel a like factor, it might change its look, but it doesn't change its value. So if you multiply every single one of these factors that's remaining now in the numerator, you have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times x. Now again, we're not going to go through this in this amount of detail every time, but when you multiply all those out, all those numbers 1 multiply together to give you 1 times x, that gives you x. Downstairs here in the denominator we have 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, and that also equals 1. So we have x divided by 1, and we know that any real number divided by 1 is just the real number. So all of this simplifies. 4x cubed divided by 4x squared simplifies to just x. So I urge you to, before I do number 2 here, I urge you to pause the video and try that one on your own. So I'm going to go ahead and keep the minus sign, so don't forget about that. I'm going to redo this one just the way I did the first one. I'm going to take the 3. Well, 3 doesn't factor at all, so 3 is just 3 times 1. N also remains just n. But 9 can be written as 3 times 3, and then n to the 4th, n times n times n times n. So once we see that, we see, oh, we've got a 3 up on top and bottom. We can cancel the factors. They are all factors. N divided by n, and there's no more n's up on top to cancel, so we don't cancel anymore. And don't forget that once you cancel every term, it's not a 0 that's left, it's actually a 1. So 1 is remaining up there, 1's down here. So if you multiply every single factor in the numerator, don't forget about the minus sign, when you multiply every single factor in the numerator that's left over, what's left over is a 1 times a 1, so we have a 1 up on top. And then we have 1 times 3 times 1 times n times n times n. Well, remember, n times n times n, that's n cubed, so if that's still remaining, we want to write it in the most succinct way. So we have 1 over 3, negative 1 over 3n to the 3rd power. So that's how you do number 2.